All right. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Entering the Creative Unknown. And I am here with my friend and fellow dream artist, Irene Wellm. And before we jump into it, I'm just going to read her artist statement so we can learn a little bit about her work. So, Irene Wellm is an Australian artist who's been making art for 45 years. Her materials were initially oil painting on canvas, later works on paper, painting with gouache, and more recently acrylic on board. She has also used collage in the manner of trompe l'oeil. I hope I didn't butcher that. And more recently in free form to access deeper layers of play and conversation with the unconscious. Her lifelong interest has been in dream work and self development. These various explorations have been and continue to be through the lens of psychotherapy based on the theories of Swiss psychologist Carl G. Jung. Her art expresses itself as a kind of theater, often using humor and expressing mystery about who she experiences herself to be. She states, I've always liked the idea of storytelling, and in the Jungian way, I'm interested in how pictures like stories, myths, and fairy tales can function as maps or guides to the unconscious mind. So, in reading all of this, we're sisters already. So, thank you so much for being with me today. And just a little bit of background on how we met. We met through This Young in Life's Dream Studio, and I was so compelled to interview you because your work throughout that process really drew me in. And I just felt like there's certain expressions of art where, and I think when we share dreams in a collective, where you feel like you've been in that dream before when you see somebody's dream and you don't know why. So I'm so happy that you agreed to join me here today. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself outside of the artist statement?
Right. Okay. Hi. About myself, I grew up in Australia, obviously. I spent probably the first 10 years or 12 years of my life by the sea, in a suburb of Melbourne. And after that, we moved to the country, and that's where I really started to connect with nature. We were lucky enough to have horses. So we used to go horse riding in the mountains, in nature there too. So that was where I found a lot of peace, from, I guess, a home that was a little bit dysfunctional, as we all have experienced, I think.
Not me.
No. Uh, and but look, there's all the positives and the negatives, and I'm going to stick to the positives because my mother built the most beautiful garden, and that's where I helped her and got my own passion for the garden and planting. And she was the one who was into the Jungian theories, and she explored, the books, her books. I inherited most of her books from all the authors that were in that field, and dream work was a really big part for her, of her sort of life. And then I just picked it up because of her, really. She was always trying to broaden our minds, when we had problems, or especially when I was at school, I was very isolated. And uh, she would always sort of try to help in that way. So, and that sort of led on to a life of, that was the base of my life thereafter, to be honest. I was always writing my dreams down, and I did for quite some time workshops based on meditation and all those sorts of things. So this went alongside my art, which was, right from the word go. That was what I knew I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. Not that anyone really in the family sort of understood it, but that's okay. And finding jobs to support that, and
Yeah.
yeah, and that
What
sort
I
of thing.
love Go ahead.
No,
I was just going to
um,
say what I loved about when I reached out to you about sitting down with you in conversation. You wrote me back something like we were trying to coordinate the time and trying to coordinate the date, and we're obviously on different parts of the earth. But I love that you were like, listen, I get up in the morning and I have my meditation, I have my dream journaling, and this is what I do. And there's something so wonderful about hearing that, not just the fact that you have the ritual itself, which, so many people don't have rituals beyond brushing teeth and coffee, but also about the fact that that ritual, just the fact that you were already creating the space for it in terms of when we were going to talk, it means that it's a really, really sacred process to you. That's just part of what you have to do every day. So, can you talk a little bit about your dream practice every day and what it entails?
I wake up hopefully as slowly as possible and try to stay in that liminal zone for as long as I can. I I try to pick up threads of dreams. I have sometimes sometimes I can't. Sometimes it takes a little while, and sometimes there'll be a trigger later on. So once I'm up and I do my coffee ritual, I sit down and I my journal is actually I have a special iPad as a journal. And I make in the notes there, I write all the dreams. And in the past, I did just collect dreams and just think about them a lot. But a lot of that's changed since we've been doing dream school. I have learned how to ask certain questions and write about the feelings that are in the dreams. And so I make as many notes as I have time for. It depends, obviously, how early I've been able to get up. And then a part of that, then if there's time, I do a meditation. It's usually a guided meditation that I have found from a Scottish woman who has made them specific for creatives. So they really help to basically to work on grounding and letting go of negative beliefs and relaxing and becoming creative and flourishing. So there's all the different, and so I just see how I feel. I do one of those. And then the beauty of being out in the country is that I go for a walk with my dog and I am able to take time to really ponder, say, a particular image or what I feel, what is the dream trying to tell me? Um, and just the walking and the rhythm, it's wonderful. Sometimes I do have to stop and make notes in my phone because I know I'll forget because I'm in a different space in my head. So I make notes sometimes, but mostly I just really try to go into the feeling of it and see where I can go with that and what the dream might be trying to suggest that I am doing or need to think about or that sort of thing.
It's
And then
really
after that,
interesting. Go ahead.
oh, sorry, no, just after that, it's just straight off into the day.
Yeah. I wanted to say that it's very interesting that there's this, I'm hoping that I can find the words for this, but there's a deep process that goes into working with our dreams. And, our dreams are really mysterious and our dreams don't necessarily um, say what they are. They might never say what they are fully. And I liked how you said that it's based on feeling, because there isn't when I think about dream work, at least the way that I work with dreams, it can't be a narrative. I'm not like, maybe the writing down part of it is a narrative, but what sticks with me is these particular images and how they come up and how they uh, like shape shift over the years. They completely
Oh, yeah,
transform. And it can be really difficult to find. I like the way that you brought the body into it. And I think that's part of what the walking does. It's
yes,
sort of it's integrating into your system the threads of your dream, where they live, how they want to be initially expressed. And that for me, my I usually do yoga. That's my
Mm.
body process. And I have to keep a little notebook by my when I do my yoga practice saying like, oh yeah, that it's really
Yes.
so then on your daily, do you normally go into the studio after you go through that process?
No, generally, actually have a studio where I am currently in Melbourne. I live more out in the country, and my place out in the country. I have a small room and I do want to try to do a bit more there, but I find that my garden tends to consume me a bit. And so I commit to a couple of days of working outside. So I've got my hands in the earth, which is also actually, a similar thing of that sort of feeling into the body and the grounding, which is great. And then when I'm in Melbourne, yes, I am immediately off to my studio, and I have a journal practice that I've been doing since 2 years, and I use it to play. And it's because I have always been way too serious, and I've been learning through another art course how to release again more of the sort of negative frameworks, reframe them, but also the big deal was about play. So in this journal, I just do anything. And it's really again about connecting to feeling. And it's about painting or collage or anything that takes my fancy. And it's like in this moment, I just can feel my 5-year-old self sitting there on the floor with all the stuff on the floor, doing a tuneless little hum and playing around, totally
Oh,
self-absorbed. And that's when I find her in my journal, um, it's such bliss. And of course, what
yes.
happens is the energies start to come up, and I can suddenly move into my work, the painting that I might be struggling a bit with, or it just starts things beautifully.
I'd like to, so based on that, because I really like what you're saying about the notion of play. And it is, I think that they say that play is the main thing that's missing from our lives as adults. It could really save the planet. And I feel like dream work, I always say this, dream work can save the world. And if you aren't willing to, you know, be in this space of play, I don't know how you can really interact with your dreams because the critical voice is so present. And it's almost like, I don't know. I feel for me personally, I have to play with my dreams. I cut out my dreams like little puppets, actually. And I
Yeah.
have, my little dream images that I sort of like play with. And then I start to get into creating a piece. So I want to pull up some of your slides right now. Okay. So I wanted to, I put these in a certain order and we'll go through it because the reason why I put up this is your studio. Is that
Yeah.
right? And
Yes,
I
it
have
is.
studio envy because my studio is just like this little corner that's supposed to be a
Oh,
living room, but it's actually my studio. So, can you talk about the relationship between an artist, you as an artist, and your studio?
I have
What's the
been in this
difference?
studio. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, what's the difference between like how does the energy shift when you're in a studio versus just like maybe creating art in your home?
I've been in this space for 24 years. No, not 24 years. I've been in this building for 24 years and in this studio probably at least 15 of those. And my energy fills that space utterly. And having made art in there for so long, um, it's, I don't know, it's like you walk into your own presence that's already there. And so you just and now you see, I surround myself with things that I have done just to keep up a connection with those works. And they also give me little hints about, what I might be trying to do in larger works, especially those small boards. When I'm at home, I do have a small room that I am lucky enough to have there too. But I don't use it as much. But when I first got into that little space, it it took me a little while to fill it with my energy again. And that little period makes it quite you're sort of not quite there fully. It's like you're not fully present creatively. And it just takes a little while to warm up to the space. And I do things like, print out pictures I like or put up quotes or, do research or, just fiddle around, tidy up, lots of tidying up, lots of rearranging, lots of making the space feel really good. And once I get to that place, it just took off. It was great.
When I was looking through your studio and I was on your Instagram and saw some videos of your studio, and the thought that I had, well, first of all, it's your work is so beautiful and I can feel the stories and I can feel the mythology in your stories. But how I feel is like when you walk into a space like that, when you walk into your own, if I were to walk into your studio, it feels like you're walking into a womb and like you're walking
Ah,
into this womb of the collective images. It's very beautiful. And
wow.
especially with I love the wildness of what I'm seeing here in this. And I don't really want to dwell too much on the paintings in here because we're going to go through, but there's just a feeling of, when I looked inside of your studio, it's like looking at the constellations almost. It's kind of hard to explain. Like you're in this womb that's like a little universe and you're looking at the constellations and you're not there to define it or decide what it is. You're just there to feel it. And just like, we're in relationship with so many people all the time, relationships shift and change by the minute sometimes. So I just so appreciate seeing your studio space. And the next slide that I wanted to share is this one. Oops, I'm going back because this is from Dream Studio. And I remember seeing this and being like, wow. I don't know what
Yeah,
this is, but I love it. And now seeing
yeah.
this and seeing your other work, it's really a lot different than
Yes,
like your bigger pieces. So
yes.
I don't know if you feel like speaking about this dream or not, or this process, but
Okay.
say something about
Oh
it.
yeah, I don't mind at all. It was one of the big dreams. And it was about reclaiming some artwork of mine that had been in a museum. And my husband was there and was making sure that the document had the correct information on it so the museum could not claim my work back again or say it was theirs. And on this document, there was the 999,999,000, $999. And he was crossing out all down this list. And whilst he was taking care of that, I walk across to another room and there's my artwork. And on the wall in red are clothes of mine hanging there, and I'm to take them back. And at that point, I walk through to another space, uh, and there are, um, sorry, I'm going to just get a bit soft here because it was so powerful. There were two groups of three women, three on the right, three on the left. And I didn't know them, but I recognized them and they were coming to me. And if I recall correctly, the question they asked me is, when was I going to find gallery representation? Which I understood to mean, when was I going to start to represent myself more fully? And I'm getting shivers. So I have been, so I came at a later point and I wanted to play with that. And I just thought, because I looked up to the significance of the number nine, I already felt that it was like a tipping point into a new cycle because you come to nine and you go into the next um, theories of numbers. So yeah, it felt really big. It still, when I talk about it, it still feels alive inside me. And so that's the piece in the book that I just played with.
It's beautiful. And I also think about the number three with the three women as
Yeah,
three in tarot, it's like moving on to the next step. It's something's been
yeah,
completed and now it's time to move forward. So that is so
yeah,
right there. We could talk for
yeah,
hours just about this one thing.
yep,
And it
yep.
is so, and I just love that this resonated with me so strongly, even though I had no idea what the story was. But it's that crossing out to me is
Yeah.
so powerful. And also just the idea of like, I know that the red is, obviously this is just my projection, but just seeing a red circle, seeing the red sun, seeing that as a sign of rebirth, it's just so
Oh,
beautiful and powerful. I love it. I love it so much. And I can't even dwell on it because I have to move forward. This is my
yeah.
big problem with these slides. If I get like, I'm supposed to be doing an interview and I'm like, wow. So I gotta move forward. So we're gonna move through. These are the journals that you, oops, let me go back. These are the journals that you're speaking about, right? So is this your morning
Yeah.
practice?
Um,
So
Not
go ahead.
always. I have an intention to make it my morning practice, and I haven't quite got there. Yeah, so but mostly I try to do that at some point, especially when I'm in Melbourne in the studio. I will go in and do something. I found it the most um, efficient, more, it's just the most joyful way to move into something without any pressure and just to play. So sometimes there's collage, and then I paint over, this one's like a bit of collage and I just painted over the top of it. And just whatever tools I learned to in this other art course about all the different tools. And of course, I'm gathering all kinds of things that make marks and like the little dots. And I just play, and I don't care. And well, now they do see it. No one normally would be seeing this, but really it just doesn't matter, because the brilliant thing about it here is that I just don't care, because it's just play, you know. It's not meant to be fine art or anything. And that's been such a joy to find that.
Well, and it's really wonderful because it's like a dream when you let yourself be like that. It's
Mm.
like a dream. And then something floats to the surface of that kind of free work that you're like, oh my gosh, I thought I was just playing around, but now
Ah,
I see something here. So, I
yep,
see so much in this just in my own reflections. And I love
yes,
the idea of not, I always feel like I'm not a trained artist at all. So for me, I feel like in a lot of ways I have maybe advantages over trained artists because I'm really not getting into
yep,
it. I don't know what
yep,
this or that is. I don't know what
yep,
materials you're supposed to use or not use, or yeah, I have no idea. And in
yeah,
a lot of ways, that's liberating for me. On the other hand, it would be liberating for me to not have to spend like literally 5 hours just trying to draw a nose, where it might take somebody trained just to. So I realize that there's pros and cons, but I do feel like if I were a trained artist, that this piece, what you're doing right here, would be so critical to just remember that I'm an integrated person, that I have this inner child, that nothing is so serious. It's not,
yes,
I always tell people when I'm teaching a yoga class, like when I ask them to make a decision on what they do next, and everybody kind of freezes. And I'm like, this isn't life or death. Like, do you want to do a balance pose or do you want to lay on the floor? Like, either decision is fine. So I like that you start off with this process because it gives you a chance to be free and also a chance to discover where you go on to go from a more maybe bodily feel. Does that sound right? Rather than a mental
yeah.
feel?
Oh, yeah. Yes, absolutely. Because I am often afflicted with the analysis paralysis, too much in my mind, too much thinking. So this whole process over the last few years has been about really moving into soul. And that's the whole point of feeling, because that's the language. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I was looking at this particular piece, and it was the only journal entry that you shared with me that I noticed a date written on. And the
Oh, yeah.
date is June 24th, which is my birthday.
Ah,
So I was like, okay, that's synchronicity. So how does I just for me that's like I never write off a synchronicity and I'm so drawn to this image. So do you want to talk about or can you talk about if and how synchronicity plays a role in your creative process?
yeah, that's a good one. Synchronicity, I am always trying to be aware when things happen. There are coincidences, and I say to myself, maybe not. Let's look at that and see if there's something synchronous about that. Um, in terms of my work, um, I'm not sure if I can really see it there. It's more about going about daily life, and listening to the prompts that might say to me, you should go and do this. Why don't you try that? Why don't you go there? And which I constantly ignore. But I'm trying not to anymore. I'm trying to just follow things because I have in the past had quite extraordinary experiences by listening to those prompts. Um, and sometimes they're quite mad. And like, for example, my studio that I am in there, I was post having done a master's degree, I was looking for a studio. I'm going everywhere trying to find things, find something that felt right, and nothing was great. And I was running out of options. And something inside me said, drive over to your friend Peter's place. I was like, oh, why? Why would I go there? And I was like, okay, hang on a minute. It could be one of those things. And I went over there and as I thought, well, it's going to hurt. Really, it doesn't hurt. So I drove over there and Peter's not there, but there's a friend of his there who's just dropped by. And I chat to him. He goes, oh, we've got studios in Clifton Hill. We've got stuff available at the moment. You should come over. I was like, right, okay, brilliant. And I went there, and that's when it started, my history there. And it's just one of those things. Um, Sometimes in the painting, actually, I'm thinking if I take that across to my painting when I try to feel what I should do, I don't know that it's synchronicity though. I think that's a completely different thing here where it's more, I get an impulse to try something that's quite left of field. And so I follow that.
Maybe it's the practice of, I'm just thinking for myself, and maybe this is true for you too, but maybe the idea of everything that we are exploring when we're talking about Jungian work, of synchronicity, of, just the idea of learning to trust.
Ah,
So,
yeah,
and so that maybe that is that. I mean, for me, that has to should be in my art. I have to trust my artistic process and not try to control it. So,
mhm.
um, I don't know if that resonates with you or not, but it feels like
100,
there's,
yeah,
yeah, it feels like there's a lot of trust in your
100%.
process. Yeah.
It's one of the big things for me. That's the two things that I think are core for my trajectory in this time is trust. Really learning to trust that inner voice, learning to trust the process, learning to just trust that everything's going to be fine. And yeah, it's like what's the worst thing that could happen, honestly, with an artwork? What's the worst thing? Oh, well, I have to paint over it. Oh, I have to sand it back, or I have to start again. It's no big deal. So yeah,
Yeah.
trust is huge.
So can we talk a little bit about, oh, and I want to go back to this term because I know I butchered it, but I did my best. It's trompe l'oeil.
Promptly,
Trompe
Lou.
l'oeil. Okay. So
Yeah.
I had never heard of that. So I looked it up and it is a process of collaging.
Yeah.
Is that process in here? Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can talk about it now. It's not so much in my work. I don't know. It might be creeping in a bit. it refers to, you might see the work behind me, which is it's a gouache painting on paper. And so I have painted a series of works that were painted to look like they were collage, but they weren't. So
Oh,
so that's the trick of the eye is
okay,
that
wonderful.
they are not what they appear to be. So yeah, that was that series of work. But because I had such a long break in my garden for about 10 years, I my work got to a point. Well, I have to say, something inside me refused to make this work inside. Every time I tried to come back to making my gouache paintings, I couldn't do it. I just could not, it just wouldn't happen. I wasn't enjoying it. It felt all because it was I would work out what I was doing first and then paint it. And I couldn't do that. It was just a big block inside me that said, you can't do that anymore. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to change what I'm doing again. So this is kind of what you see here is perhaps a halfway step from doing those works to seeing how I could, you know, play around with that idea of paper on the board. And I tried, this was the one work that I would call my stepping stone. This is actually the work in progress. And it was that point that I launched off from and then I let go of the collage in my painting.
Do you, this is such an amazing work, and I want to talk a little bit about the fact that you work primarily in black and white and grayscale, or from what I've seen. And what does that mean for you?
That was a means to simplify. When I was in Germany, I was painting, I've always painted in oil paints and really strong colors. And I had an experience with an art school lecturer who and a friend who also suggested that I simplify my palette, and which upset me greatly. And it took a long time, but I think I might have done the black and white thing. Ha ha. I went from one extreme to the other. And yeah, so, and actually, I mean, I've always absolutely loved black and white photography, black and white paintings. I just love it. So I just went there. And I felt that because of the imagery that I was making, it suited it because sometimes color would add a whole other layer of complexity that I felt like it would have been too much. And this seemed to really suit that kind of collage work that I was doing. And that has come across with me to now to the acrylic painting, but the color's creeping back in. So I'm currently working on a new work at the moment that has some pretty awesome color in it. So we'll see. I mean, I do the small boards and I do this size board, and I still start with the black and white, and I still start with a bone black, which is a translucent warm black, and make the explorations from there. So it's just become a part of how I start now, but it may or may not end up, you know, just black and white. It's just sometimes the color does creep in.
It is really, I like looking at this in black and white. It feels to me like how it's supposed to be seen in
Mm,
a sense.
mm,
And I also love black and white. When you see something in black and white in maybe one color, like some of your other pieces that we're about to see, it feels, it feels very dreamlike. And I don't know if it's actually people or
ah.
dogs, but they say that, I guess they say dogs, and I don't know how they know that dogs dream, but they say that dogs dream in black and white. Do they say people dream in black and white? Because I don't. Do you?
Some people do. No, no. Some people, yeah, I have heard it does happen. Some people do. Yeah.
So can you talk a little, wait, is this is board, correct?
Yep.
And then this is the beginning of your process right here. Can
Yeah.
you
It
talk a
has
little bit
become.
about, yeah, how do you start?
So this is the method that I picked up again, as I mentioned before, this other course that I started. Um, it's just a way of playing with no intention of doing anything. It was a way to build up a surface for a while. And suddenly it just became it just became really exciting because I started to sort of see things and I really liked the atmosphere that it was building up. And as you can see, I started to get I am still obsessed with circles. And so this was how it started and it's still going on. And it just builds up to a point where some of the boards I start to see things in them, which, we do. We look at shapes and our brain says, oh, that looks like this. But I also felt that it was a space for the unconscious to project onto, which I really liked. And that's why I've kept doing it. And I have pushed that further.
So when this is like to me, this is a complete piece. I know like that's what it looks like to me, only because I've never done anything like this before. But how do you know? So when you're going through this process of like just the play part and waiting, how do you know? Like, what indicates to you? Is it in your body? How do you know when, like, okay, now I'm really in relationship with something? Something is happening where I need to sort of really share the space now with whoever I'm with, the unconscious or whatever I'm engaging with in the moment. How do you know, or do you have a way of knowing that that's happening for you?
Um, with not so much with this particular image, because this one had a lot more intention from the start. But with the more recent small boards that I've been doing, the play goes on for a certain amount of time, and that's what I've set out to do. That I'm going to do maybe 4 or 5 passes, maybe 3 passes with something and keep going. And then slowly I put them aside and I look at them and then something starts to emerge. So immediately I'm discerning. I've switched from play to discern something about that image looks interesting. And sometimes it's halfway there and it's really nothing. Sometimes it's really, really obvious. And they're the ones that I then take. And, just from what I see and my experience, I just develop the images that are there. And that's when just, I guess, all the years of painting kick in. And so it goes a little bit back and forward. I try not to define too much. I try to allow the paint to do more talking rather than um, you know paint exactly, say, an animal too in those boards too clearly. It just is a shape that we can recognize. And yeah, I want to I'm trying, that's my aim at the moment, is trying to keep that balance between I don't want it to be too real. I don't want it to be, not readable. So I'm trying to find that in between space.
Um, I would love for you to speak about this piece.
Mhm.
Well, I don't want to say. I would like you to speak on it, and tell me what sprung. Where did this piece spring from? What is it called, and what was your process?
It sprung from an experience that I had with my dog that I felt very bad about. My dear dog has a very high instinctual drive. And when I first got him, he was pretty messed up because he hadn't been handled as a puppy. So he was pretty uncontrollable. And he got away from me one day and we were in a paddock and he sniffed out a fox. And ultimately, I couldn't get him away and he killed the fox. It was a young fox. Now, in Australia, fox are considered to be vermin, but it's an animal to me. It was just a very sad thing that happened, and I learned a lot from that. And but I carried a deep grief and a mourning for the spirit of this fox, this creature that it kind of had appeared not quite right. Like he didn't have that, intense wiliness. He seemed a little bit innocent somehow, or I don't know. Anyway, so that's why I started to make things to do with the fox. So that's where he came in. I can't remember the rest of the question now.
It's so, I feel really, I felt emotional about this piece before, and
Mm.
now I feel even more emotional about it. But it's such a beautiful tribute. Um, and I love the white image in the middle. It's just, it reminds me a lot of when you are, when you're visited by a spirit that's not quite gone and not quite here.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
I,
really,
I,
really
I
beautiful.
thank you. I don't. I'm pretty certain I haven't even titled it. It was just. It's one of those pieces for me. It. I probably would not put it in an exhibition. That it's very because it is so personal. I keep it in my studio, and it's just one of the pieces that, yeah, because it connects me to previous work and it talks to the future, all those things. So yeah, it kind of is what it is, and so I don't want to name it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
Amazing. Okay.
I think, yeah, okay.
I love this so much because of the constellation. And do you want to speak on this piece?
This piece arrived without me uh, doing. It just happened. There were just shapes, as you saw that previous sort of backward and forward process of, paint going everywhere. Just things gradually, very just. It's one of those paintings that came easily. Um, and then I just sort of worked on that till it just seemed to have balance. I love wolves. I just love wolves. And uh, I was also dealing with some dreams from way, way back. I'd had to do with wolves in the terms of my mother and perhaps like that wolfish hunger and things like that. So I guess in a way I was trying to take the away from a physical instinct type thing into a more, I guess, onto a more spiritual level, try to transform it in some way. I don't know. But I just followed what felt different and whatever. My biggest thing is, does it surprise me? And when I did this, it ended up surprising me quite a bit. And I felt really, really happy having done it. Um, and some of these works, they stay alive in me for a long, long time. Um, uh, I might not, I don't try to analyze them too much because I just don't want it in my brain space. I'd like to just leave it in my body. So yeah, this is one of my favorites too. I think that's, yeah.
It's so powerful when I look at this. I mean, and again, these are just all my own associations and projections, but the idea of the wolf as being a creature, well, first of all, the wolf is on this threshold between these two. You have the circle to the side, which I'm seeing as some sort of a moon. And then you have this portal on the
Mm,
opposite side. This is just how I'm seeing it.
hmm
And, wolves are so filled with instinct, but they're also very much contained. They don't overdo. They're members of a tribe. They are, they're so demonized, but they're so contained. They're incredible creatures. And
mm,
it's just the fact that the universe is inside of this wolf.
yeah.
It's like this wolf is holding such a big piece of us that we don't even recognize at all. And it's so beautiful and
Mm,
vast and infinite. I don't know. I just love it. And if you don't
mm,
mind speaking a little bit to the what I'm calling like a moon figure to the left.
mm.
It looks like there's a person in there.
I just saw that. I can see an eye in there.
Yeah.
And I was not aware of that before. So there you go. The marks.
It's
Yeah,
almost
that
like a
that's
Baba Yaga, honestly.
oh yeah. Oh,
That's that's what I see.
see, I love that. I love that that this is people bring what they feel and that they see. And the this was all just very fast mark making with no intention,
Mm,
other than the actual spheres that I was creating, because I obviously said, yes, I want to put a sphere here, and again just followed that impulse. Um, so yeah, the moon seems to have a some other planetary constellating around it also, which are
hmm.
sort of on the lower right. Um, yeah. So, and
Oh,
the big sort of black sphere sort of is a bit, I don't know, black sun-like to me in a way. I don't know. I'm not sure.
there's so much to look at. And I just feel if you never said that your work was from the unconscious, there's no doubting it because I feel like I'm stepping into my own
Oh,
space, in my own
wow.
depths, is what I feel like.
Wow. That's great. That's really great.
Um,
I
I
guess
love
that's
it.
my intention. Yeah. I've always wanted, uh, wh- when we sort of set up, when I set up every year, like where I want my work to go, I've always wanted to be able to paint with a connection to a greater energy, and I guess in some senses, archetypal energies. And I think I was always a little bit afraid because, you know, you don't want to go, you don't want to, you have to sort of really stay within yourself and let these energies come through. And I know that you have to be careful with that. So it's really great to hear your feedback on that, because that I think I'm obviously, hopefully, finding a balance with that.
Yeah,
And
it's
this is one, sorry, this is one of the smaller boards that's 30 by 30 centimeters. And this was probably one of, again, I feel one of the successful ones that came through because, it's sort of partially abstracted, and it's not, and I love that. I love that liminal space here.
do you write stories about your pieces ever?
No, no, I don't. I don't feel the need to write things about them.
Yeah.
I do a lot of journaling. I write an awful lot. I write, that's another thing I can do to help me with my process if emotions are starting to get in the way, if I write it all out. But I haven't ever written about the work.
What sign are you?
Gemini.
I just love all of the so many moons in your pieces, and I don't know if they're actually moons, but I just wow. This is why I love doing these talks, is it's like I'm receiving such a big gift. And I hope that when people watch these, that they receive as much of a gift as I'm receiving from getting to talk to you about your pieces and your process because they're just so powerful.
Mm.
So do you want to speak on this? And it's so interesting saying that you're a Gemini because even in that, the use of so much black and white feels like a Gemini, you know? Feel so speak a little bit about this piece. I know you have a deep connection to horses, and this has a horse, and the previous piece had a horse in it. So,
Hmm.
how does the horse speak to you?
Hmm. Um, this horse again just appeared. It was there. It came through the marks, and I just brought it out. I barely touched. I just painted the outside a bit and brought out some details. The horse, just the horse is the safe place. That's what the horse is for me. The being with horses is safe, and I feel um, really connected. When I was a girl with riding, I've always felt very, very deeply connected to horses, and um, yeah, it was a place of calm and balance, and um, yeah. So I guess, and it's always been there in me. I can't ride anymore, but um, I just love horses. And so it's not that I've intentionally put these horses there, they do just appear. So as we said, it still comes from me. So they're obviously playing an important part. And psychologically, I guess there's all kinds of ways we could look at the symbol of the horse. And I am aware of those as well. So I'm always a little bit happy when I see something like this, which indicates a very, very strong drive for me, something that's able to really pull the loads, you know.
It's interesting when you're saying it just appeared. There's a couple of things that I thought of. The first thing that I thought of was, I don't know if you've had, like, I don't really, I have a lot of tarot cards, but I don't do tarot cards really. I think I went through a phase where I was like, this was fun, but I do have a lot of tarot cards around because I love the artwork on them, and I get curious about it. But usually I'm the type of person that just draws a single card. And I don't do it that often, but it's like I draw the card and I kind of want to see where it takes me. And for the past, I don't know, I'm not kidding. Like for the past 2 years, every time I draw a single card, no matter what deck, I draw the Hermit card every single time. And that's just, and I'm shuffling like I'm, so I find that it's sort of similar when an image comes up, when the horse comes up over and over again. I'm kind of struck by this idea of, and again, just my own projection, but just of like a message that needs to be integrated more or something like that, an acceptance of something.
Mm.
I love it. So how do you know when you're doing a piece where the piece just appears, like the horse just appears, how do you know when to stop?
Oh, yes. The old when do we stop? When is it finished? Um, with these smaller boards, I have tried very hard to pull up very fast and to let the work be light. Um, and I've been okay with that. I don't know, it's just something inside goes click, you know. Um, it just goes done. And so I put it away, you know. It's a bit more difficult with large works because it's a much bigger surface. You're dealing with a lot more. The space is much bigger. I haven't quite been able to transfer this process across yet, and I hope to be able to. But I know that's also process. I just have to wait until I get there, and be patient. But
Yeah.
there is just that it's like playing, I don't know, I think I keep getting this feeling of circles. I go round and I go round and I go round on the work, and suddenly something goes click. I go, you're right. And I go round and I keep a fiddle and I go round and round, and something else will click. And then, and until everything just goes, I'm ready. And somehow I just seem to be able to, most times I can feel when that happens, when it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I think when it doesn't happen, it means that um, first of all, I'm trying too hard and my head has gotten in the way, usually. So sometimes those are the works that are better put away, forgotten about
Right.
for a
So
while.
I wanted to talk to you about that, because I was talking about this with, I can't remember who I was interviewing, but sometimes I'm working on something and it becomes, well, it's not just a sense of stuckness, but I also feel, it's not just stuck, it's stuck emotion, it's stuck motion, it's like a stuck, just it
Yeah.
hurts, it feels heavy in my heart. I don't feel like
Mm,
I'm respecting what's coming out. Like I'm not really quite sure what's happening. And
mm,
when I go to put those pieces away to bring back at a later date, this is something that I'm just in like a transition of how I do this, but I'm trying to put away the pieces with a sense of still tending to them,
mm,
even though I'm not working with them. And so, depending on what kind of piece I'm working on, like if I'm working on a doll, I might tuck the doll into like a little bed and put it away until I work on it again. Or, there's different processes that I do for different things. So, how do you, when you put your pieces away, that you might not be able to finish. Is there a
mm.
ritual around that? And what happens to the relationship?
Sometimes it just dies and I have no connection anymore, which is fine. And other times it just might it might just be a matter of me having gone away for a few days and come back to the studio and I see it completely afresh. And if I have had success with something else, I can then carry that energy over to that work that hasn't worked. So if there are works that I kind of stuck on, but I know that there's something there, then I might just put it to the side and see it out of the corner of my eye. Or if it's really bugging me, I turn it to the wall. And I keep going and I keep moving. And by keeping on moving, and having found, say, the flow with other pieces, then at a later point, that's when I can come back and reassess what was going on. And usually I can sort of see, oh yeah, there's too much going on there. It'll be something for me, very often it'll be some sort of technical issue like it's too complicated, or there's too much same going on, or there's I don't know, you need to have a different shape, or it's the composition isn't quite right, or something like that. Or the tone. It's usually very often it can just be color. Even the color is just wrong. If you've got the wrong value. It's things like that.
Um, okay, so when you are talking about when I'm looking at your pieces to me feel like they move out in.
Mm.
Like it's like you do this big outer thing and then you go in. So it's
Yeah.
almost like and I really like that because it is the feet and mandalas are so they're all over. I mean, you have circles everywhere. So how is for you, what is the relationship between out and in
Mm.
your paintings and in your creative process?
That's a hard question.
It
I
is.
I I hear what you're saying and I feel the truth of it, and yet I don't think I quite um, had that recognition of it previously.
Mhm.
Um, so you're kind of catching me on the back
I just
foot.
stumped you.
You did. Uh,
Well,
oh,
your work is so informed by it. Your work is so informed by the inner. I mean, you are living a very
yes.
rich inner life. So I guess I guess you do move. It's just the fact that it goes so big. And when you look at, like, I'm very focused on the fact that this deer is now put in the center. Why don't you talk about your process of this piece? Then we can go back to what I was just talking
Oh,
about.
yeah, sure. Um, yeah, this actually, I had a bit of trouble with this one. Again, it's a small board, 30 by 30, and I was mucking around with it. And, and what happens sometimes, as soon as I'm unsure about what I'm doing, I start trying to replicate what worked in something else, which never works. It
Yeah.
never works. So I put it away and came back to it, and I just was in a moment. I think I was in a good day and I'd had something else go right. And I just gathered this, I don't know, I had this physical sense of gathering all this energy and just letting it bomb the work and just say, just so that I didn't care. And, and it just, I had this image lying, that's a piece of collage. I just thought, oh, you should paint that stag. And I'm like, oh, I'm just, oh, sorry. You should just do, you should just put the collage on. Don't worry about it. Stop listening to that stupid critical voice. Do whatever. It just doesn't matter. And so within, I don't know, like it must have been within 15, 20 minutes, I just pulled that thing to, I just splashed this paint around and dragged it and dripped it and stuck the thing on. And I was like, oh my God, look at the energy.
Yeah.
So yeah, so um, it just came through and you can't repeat that stuff. You just can't. It's just a matter of gathering force. If I can do it consciously, I'd love to be able to do it a lot more consciously, and I'm going to try. Always to gather that force and and let it really rip onto the work,
Yeah.
without and getting that critic out of your head. I think that's been the worst problem of my career is having a very strong critic. And I'm getting it to calm down and quieten down a fair bit, but it's still, it still comes in. but I'm better at saying, off you go, get lost.
Yeah. I think this is such a beautiful piece. And I always find, I was talking about this with in another artist talk about collaging things. Collaging is to me I would never know when to stop. I would never know when to put anything because it's like it feels like a really big commitment. Where, like, for me, painting feels more like, okay, it is a commitment, but I'm more engaged with my body. But when you're putting something like a piece to collage, it's like you're making a decision.
Mm,
This is where this is going. And it works beautifully. And it makes me think about like a while ago, there's a certain yoga pose. It's a balance pose, and a lot of people do it. And I'm a yoga teacher, and I've been teaching yoga for 10 million years. And this one balance pose, like, I just couldn't do. And like, I even had a friend of mine who's a yoga teacher come over and try to show me. And I was just like, honestly, fuck it. Like, I can't do this anymore. And I just put it away. Excuse my French. And then one day I just did it. You know what I mean? And it was the inner critic. It was,
yeah,
instead of feeling my way into
yeah,
something, I was sitting there thinking
yeah.
about, oh, my hips feel too tight, or this is too. And then one day it was just
Oh,
like, up I went and I just did it. So I think that
ah,
this is a lot
interesting.
similar to that kind of a process of just like, listen,
Yeah, yeah. If I ever hear the words can't, should, or shouldn't, or be careful, which, that one drives me nuts. Um,
yeah,
I know who it is. And yeah, that's like shunting that aside. And you stick a bit of something on your paper. If that hadn't have worked, I would have just painted over it. Wouldn't
right.
have mattered. Mm.
So did you paint on top of that also, or did you ink on top of the antlers at all?
I might have. I can't remember.
Yeah,
I might have. Sometimes I do.
they look really cool. Yeah, they look amazing. Okay, so we're moving into, oops, let me go back. We're moving into some color.
Yeah,
So how did
sometimes
this
they come
feel?
up. Yeah, really nice. Because I was aware that I was just sort of, I should try and put a bit of color in, sort of, but the should came in. But anyway, I did it. Um, yeah, this was another. It was just the play on the board was just with the black at first and white and black and white, and then something just this is what popped out, and so I went with it and described it more fully with the paints that I had, and yeah, it's kind of interesting. I don't think the horse is very happy in this one, but I'm not sure. But there seems to be something nice happening on the top right there, so. Maybe he's the critic sitting on my horse's back.
Yeah, maybe, although I'm seeing like crow on horse.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's a crow, and I had I I love crows. I find them very mystical, and I used to try to converse with them when I was a child.
Hmm.
I would imitate them and think they were talking to me. So I
They
really like
probably
them.
were. They probably were talking to you. They're very smart and they know good
They
people. So
are. They really are.
so what would you call this piece if you haven't called it something already?
Oh, no. Um, I think I did title it, but I haven't got it with me. I am terrible at remembering how I title my work because I just go in the moment. Um, and I'm just redoing my website actually. So hopefully I will be launching that sooner than later and titles will be there. They'll have to be there.
Yeah. You
I'm
see, and
sorry,
then
I don't
don't you feel
recall.
like this gave you a little push?
Hmm?
Don't you feel
Oh,
like this conversation gave you a little push?
I've been having a few things give me pushes lately.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The universe works in mysterious ways.
yeah,
Oh, this is like a myth on board. Do you want to talk
yeah.
a little bit about this?
I think I called this one Siren. I'm not sure. Because it just, yeah, it's about voice, you know. And again, the same process. The image appeared. I know I amplified it basically. So sometimes, there might not be a leg in a certain position, but the other ones are there, or the wing is partially there, and I can see it, so I expand it. So I'm just basically bringing out further what is I have seen. So This one had a little bit more background of different colors and painted over, and it was just again, it's so immediate, and I feel that in the energy of the work. It's not labored over, and I love it. Yeah.
Think that when I'm looking through all of your pieces, I just, even though you don't write about your pieces, it's not like when I look at your pieces, I see, even though I don't have words for it, I see like a whole land and a whole story and a
Mhm.
whole background. And, you know, that's how it is when we're drawing from the unconscious. But it's so comforting
Yeah.
to me when in having these conversations, and especially when I'm speaking with artists that are working from the unconscious, it makes me feel very comforted during these times. And
Mhm.
that we're in
Yeah.
the we're going in the right direction. You know, we have to go in order to connect. You know, I don't know anything about you. I don't know what you do, what your belief systems are, but what I do know is that we are connecting on this unconscious field, and I can
Mm.
feel it in my cellular system, and it feels like the truth. I don't know what it is, but it feels like the truth. And that's what I so loved about the Dream Studio experience, you know, being able
Mm.
to look at everybody's pieces that they from their dream from the night before or whatever it was, and just feel like, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that. I remember
Mm.
that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else that you would like to say um, before we finish our conversation?
Not sure. I don't think so. I can't think of anything at the moment. I'm sure I'll think about it later. Like, oh, we should have talked about this.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when we go through, do you want to talk a little bit about just, is there something, what's next for you, either in your creative
Ah,
process or in your life?
mm,
And then,
hmm
you know, when we get to the end of this, people will have a way to reach out to you through your website, which I know is under construction, and your Instagram, but just anything that you want people to know.
well, talking about being pushed along, because I haven't had a show for a little while. There's going to be an exhibition of my works locally, next year, early next year, I believe. And so that's kind of in the planning. And yes, the launch of the website as well. And in terms of my work, it's to keep focus and follow on that process, to work harder at not working at it,
Yeah.
to allow a feeling like the feelings I've got it on my board at the studio, things like, rawness and adventure and boldness. And I just try to have these words around me so that they resonate whilst I'm working. And that's why just the more I can let that inhabit me and let it come through me, I know the better the works will get. Um, and more large. I love making large works. So probably more of those, but the smaller works are new to me. And so I'm really happy with that sort of part of my practice that's developed as well as the journal. So I'm just going to do more is the plan, do more and yes, do better things about representing myself.
Well, I am so excited to see what's coming up with you and to just stay connected with you. And feel so grateful and so honored that you have shared your process with me. And I just love your work and I love having this conversation with you. So, more to come. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. My pleasure.